welcome this morning. My name is Jeff Potts. I'm the current police chief here in Bloomington, and I just want to say thanks for, I guess we can be happy, I guess, that it's not snowing, but a not so great morning. Maybe that's the reason we have a few no-shows, but I know it's been a long, kind of cold winter, and we're in the PD at least excited for spring to get here. And, although today doesn't really seem like spring or all that warm. Again, welcome to I think it's our 10th session of the Business Matters, Safety Matters classes, partnership that we developed with the Chamber probably about 4 or 5 years ago to try and connect the police department with the Chamber, the local businesses. For many, many years, we've done a pretty good job of connecting with our neighborhoods, built a neighborhood watch program that's very, very robust in Bloomington. Somewhere near 15,000 homes participate, and we think it's equally as important to connect with the businesses. It's about 2,000 businesses in Bloomington, and this program has helped go a long ways towards building relationships and connections with those businesses, and all in the interest of public safety, trying to get people vital information that you can use to help keep your businesses safe. We're always interested in doing more. If you know other businesses that aren't connected, please encourage them. If you and your business would like more information, Heidi and the Crime Prevention Unit is always interested in trying to do whatever we can. We've done crisis plan work with local businesses. That's, of course, a hot topic lately with all the active shooter incidents that we've seen throughout the country. But if you need anything and you want any kind of public safety information or assistance, please don't hesitate to give us a call. Heidi Miller is kind of the point person for how we connect people with the Crime Prevention Unit. If you like what you see here today, we do an annual Citizens Academy, a 10-week class. I see people in the audience here, some familiar faces from Citizen Academies of the past, but what you're going to see here today on crime scene processing, crime scene type work is just a small snippet of what we do for a 10-week class starting in the fall. And there are spots still available. If you'd like to get in on that, again, contact Heidi Miller. We'll get an application to you and get you signed up for what I think is a very interesting 10-week class. It gives you a real in-depth look at what we do here at the Bloomington Police Department. And I want to have Brad come forward. He's going to say just a few words about the Chamber and what he's kind of got going on over there right now.
Great. Good morning, everybody. My name is Brad Garrett. I'm the membership director for the Bloomington Chamber. I know many of you, a lot of familiar faces in the room, but a lot of unfamiliar faces as well. Welcome here to the Bloomington Police Department. We are thrilled to have this partnership with the Bloomington PD. Again, like Chief Jeff Potts has said, it's been a partnership that's gone back about 4 to 5 years. We've had a lot of good programs, and we have a lot of good programs coming up with them still yet this year. If you're not familiar with the Chamber itself, we do have a lot of good programs. We have a lot of good networking events. If you're interested in hearing more about what we have, please contact me. I'll be here afterwards. I'd be thrilled to talk to you about what we have coming up. So again, enjoy today's event. It's going to be a really good event, as all of them are with the Bloomington Police Department. And again, thanks Chief Jeff Potts for this partnership.
Thanks, Brad. And now for today's presentation, how many in the room have ever seen the TV show CSI Miami? CSI of any kind. That, I think, has shaped people's idea of crime scene work, crime scene forensic work, and it is very realistic. In fact, this week, Kim was just telling me that 4 of our detectives are out in Miami-Dade with Callie Duquesne and Detective Eric Delco, and they're going to get a week of crime scene training, just like they do on CSI. You guys believe that? Actually, it was a little bit of a joke, and if you've seen the show, the CSI, it is a great show. It has great ratings, so people do like it. In fact, I think it's part of the reason we see so much interest in forensic work, people interested in doing forensic work once they get hired, but it is not very realistic, actually. Probably the biggest disconnect from reality is the amount of time that it takes to solve a case. Believe it or not, we can't solve a case, and what's an hour-long show without commercials now, like 48 minutes? Simply can't be done. Even when it's a slam dunk case. Our friends here from Sam's Club know this. We had a real slam dunk kind of hairy case there, but it can't be done in 48 minutes or 60 minutes. But it takes a long time. And so today we have our own real life CSI Callie Duquesne and Eric Delco in the back of the room. They're actually Detective Nolan and Officer Todd Severson. And they're going to give you guys actually kind of a hands-on in a couple different ways, opportunity to kind of see how it's done. And But really, to give you a more thorough overview, Sergeant Kim Clausen, who runs our property crimes unit, is going to lead you through some slides, at least in the front in the first half of this, to kind of show you what the real life crime scene work is like. In 22 years that I've been working here, this is an area that I think we've seen perhaps more advancement than anything else. Certainly technology and all that comes with technology, and part of what we're seeing in the forensic science world is really driven by advancements in technology, but there's also this kind of element of hard sciences that have really come into law enforcement, and it's really been interesting to watch. We continually get cases that a fingerprint or a blood drop, a blood spatter at a burglary scene will lead to a conviction that 10 years ago or even 5 years ago simply didn't happen. It doesn't happen in 48 minutes, and sometimes, I just heard a case this morning, 7 months later we'll get the hit on a fingerprint, and that's the reality of it. But those are still convictions that we are able to get today that we haven't been able to in years past because of the advances in forensic sciences. So with that, I'm going to have Kim Clausen kind of introduce Kim Clausen to take it away from here.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming. I am currently the property crime supervisor with the police department. So when the businesses file reports such as burglaries or thefts or those types of things, those reports come to me through our clerical staff, and I route them to my investigators. Right now I have 8 investigators, and one is the primary burglary detective, Detective Scott Wilson, and some of you may have worked with him. Other crimes such as thefts and white-collar crime, credit card fraud, that type of stuff also comes to me, and I route those to other detectives. In addition to my regular daily duty, I also supervise our crime techs. Right now we have about 14 of them, and we do have 4 that are currently actually in training this week. They're not in Miami, they're in Burnsville. Burnsville runs a really good school. It's a week-long, 40 hours of training. It includes everything that you're going to see here, including, in addition, photography and that type of stuff. They're not in glamorous Florida. Last night they had to spend the night in the rain doing photography, which was kind of disappointing that the weather was bad, but it also adds the realistic factor that a lot of times our crimes do happen in bad weather. We've had a homicide in a rainstorm, and so dealing with those types of situations and doing it in training to prepare us for real life scenarios is the way that we want to train. So unfortunate for them, but it was a realistic situation. I have a presentation, and this is similar to the one that we use for the Citizens Academy. It's going to just go over briefly some of the stuff that we use for evidence, and then we do have 2 stations for a hands-on demonstration. Detective Carrie Nolan, she's a crime tech with us, has been for many years. She currently is also, her full-time daily job is school liaison to Jefferson High School. So she's a detective within the unit, works persons crimes, and during the school year is housed out of Jefferson High School. And then she's going to be doing a fingerprint kind of station for you. She'll just explain some of the stuff that we use to fingerprint, lift fingerprints, what's good surfaces, what's not. There is stuff back there. If you're wearing white, I would suggest maybe not doing the demo because you're going to end up gray. But she can help you out with that, and there's gloves and stuff back there too. And then Todd Severson is a patrol officer right now. He works day power, which is a mid-afternoon shift, and he would be the one, if you're calling an officer out to process a scene in the daytime, he could be a likely person to show up to do that. So he's been a crime tech with us for a while also, and he's going to be showing you an alternate light source. We are going to go through that door into the police department. We'll break you up in a couple groups at the end here, and we'll have half you go over there with him. And we need a room that is all dark, so there's a small interview room that we use for interviewing people, victims and such, and he's going to set that up, and there's some glasses that you can use to view alternate light sources. And I'll kind of show you in this PowerPoint what stuff we're looking for there. And if anyone has any questions at any time, feel free to interrupt me. Our crime scene investigations is an important part of our investigative process. Really, this usually starts with the patrol officers out on the street. They determine what needs to be processed. And then it gets forwarded on to the investigators to use throughout their investigation. There's also times when witnesses or victims, they only give us part of the information. A lot of times, witnesses, victims, everything's happening so fast and they don't know what to look for that they don't have all the stories. So it really is important for us to use the evidence that's available at the scene to kind of put it all together. The goal of our police department crime techs responding to the crime or the crime scene, gather, document evidence, and aid us in the investigation of our crime. Identification of a suspect is ultimately for successful prosecution. And really that's all it is the evidence assists the investigators use the evidence. It's really, it puts everything together from beginning to end. Our program, when I started, I was in patrol for 10 years. I've worked at the police department since 1999. So I worked in patrol for quite a few years. I was a crime tech when I was in patrol. Not every officer is trained in that because it is a lengthy training. It's 40 hours. These people who do this job, they earn it through their reputation of taking good detailed reports. We're going to send 4 people to school, and so I put out an announcement to all the officers in the department saying we're looking for some additional crime techs. Who is interested? They write me a memo, and then we select those officers based on supervisory input. They submit reports to me to show me how detailed they are. So it's not just anybody can do this job, it's really people that we know do a good, thorough job of investigating crime scenes at the actual scene. We do anything from car prowls, burglaries, stolen autos. We do use Hennepin County Crime Lab on occasion, so you may see them within the city, and if you have an event, you may see them come out to your location. And a lot of times that's because either I don't have somebody on duty who's available, or maybe the scene is just a little bit more advanced than what we can deal with here. County processes a lot of our items. We'll collect it and submit it to them. If we have a large case where there's going to be multiple items, we have Crime Lab come out and start the collection, and then our people work with them in hand. Just because it eliminates us gathering everything and then sending it over there, because then your chain of custody can start to get a little questionable if it goes to court. So in the bigger cases where there's multiple items, we do use Crime Lab to come out and process those scenes. Right now we have about 14, like I said, we have 4 currently in training. And they do that on the side of their additional assignments. Like Carrie's in the school, Todd works patrol. I do have a number of investigators in both property crimes and persons crimes. And then we do have one detective in narcotics that is a crime tech. We use him. He processes a lot of baggies. We have people who have narcotics in a car or in a residence, and they say, that's not my narcotics, and it's in a baggie. So we fingerprint all those baggies to try to put those drugs in that person's hands. So what do our crime techs do? Well, they do fingerprints, which Carrie's going to show you. DNA is a part of what Todd is going to show you. DNA it's our primary tool right now, actually. We get more results from DNA than we do fingerprints at this point in time because fingerprints are easy to smudge. DNA is DNA, and our best sources are usually blood. If someone cuts themselves breaking into a business or a vehicle and there's blood behind, we get excited about that because blood is the best thing that we can collect, and it usually provides us a good identification source for somebody. Well, we do take shoe prints. Right now we do have an issue with some residential burglaries that has been occurring throughout the city, primarily on the east side of town. We're looking at shoe prints. One was the last big snowfall we had on a Friday. There was a burglary that day, and we had some really good shoe prints from there. Now, it doesn't tell us who did it, but if we have a good list of suspects, we're looking at all their feet. And actually, one of our detectives went to the high school and was looking at all, because it was spring break, and so, you know, we're trying to narrow it down. Tool marks is the same. If people are prying doors, car prowls, that from vehicles, if they're prying the windows, we like to measure those photo though, just because it provides us with comparison. If it's the same person doing the same types of places, we like to look at that and see if it looks like it might be the same suspect or if it's a new group of suspects. Photographs are very, very important to us. We take a lot of photos. Our new investigators are being trained in photography. We've invested money in some good equipment, so they tell the story, and a lot of times our detectives don't make it out to the scene, so the only way they can visualize it is through the report and then with the photos, so they spend a lot of time taking pictures. Video is extremely important, and this is one thing that I'll hit on to business owners, is a lot of times we don't have any idea of who committed this crime. If we can get a video, it's extremely helpful. What we do is we take the video, even if we have a video of a white male, white female in a store. It's like, okay, we see this person, but I don't have any idea who it is. I got no name, nothing, but this is what they look like. Heidi is very helpful in that. She'll send that out from their unit. They send that out to what we call an investigators group. We email it out to hundreds of investigators throughout the metro, and a lot of times we'll get hits back saying this is who that person is. They've done the same thing in our city. So the video is extremely important to us. Walmart can attest, or Sam's Club can attest to this. They had the robbery just recently. Their video was extremely, extremely helpful to us to put a lot of elements of the crime. The suspect was charged with an attempted murder. And we probably wouldn't have been able to do that had we not been able to show that video to the county attorneys saying this guy tried to pull the trigger on the handgun with these people. And that was on video. The other part of that is their employees know how to work their video. A lot of times we'll say, yep, we have video cameras, but I don't know how to work it. I don't know how to make you a copy. There's only one person, they're out of town, they're not here. So if you do have video, please, please make sure that somebody within your organization or your business knows how to operate that and make a copy of it for the police department. We do have a detective who goes out on occasion and works with the businesses and tries to get video sent to us. But it saves a lot of time for us and for the businesses if someone there knows how to operate that video and have it on. A lot of times it's like, oh, but it wasn't on. We've had that too. Our crime techs, they recover items. That's kind of their main duties. Fingerprints, this is what Carrie's going to show you at the back. There's lots of different brushes, powders, tools. She'll kind of explain some of those to you as you look at her station. DNA, we also do a lot of DNA, and it's as simple as taking a Q-tip similar to the ones that are on there, on the slide, and we use a sterile solution. It's like a saline solution. We use that from a tube, get our Q-tip wet, and then we rub it where we think the DNA surface might be. We use that on burglaries. We had a burglary yesterday over on the east side of town where someone tried to shoulder the door open while the homeowner was home, and there was a big smudge, and we think it was sweat. So what we do is we'll take the Q-tip and we'll rub that in that area that we think is sweat, and then we'll see if there's a hit. We've gotten hits on other residential burglaries. One recently came back where the homeowner said, you know, this apple juice was not sitting on the counter when I left. The suspect went in, took a bottle of apple juice, drank it, and left it on the counter. We swabbed the area where your mouth would go on that bottle, and it came back to a known person. So places where you think it wouldn't be, we've had DNA come out of socks when people are running from a church burglary. So DNA is really a valuable thing, and we kind of just go for it. Like, could there be DNA here? Well, maybe. So it's as simple as swabbing an area. And then we send it into the BCA or crime lab, and that's what takes a long time. It doesn't take us long to collect it, but it does take a long time for it to get processed. And that's where those 7 months, 8 months kind of things come in. It's a lot easier if we know who we're looking for or who we're trying to prove is there. We can take their DNA from their cheeks like they're doing there. We get a search warrant for that. We get a search warrant. We tell them we have a search warrant for your DNA. We take it from their mouth, and then we send that to the crime lab with our sample from the scene, and they compare them to see if they're the same. That takes less time because we have a known sample rather than just shoving the DNA into a big database and hoping for something to come up. Shoe prints, we do have a chemical that we can fill into a shoe print left at a scene, and it'll give us a kind of, it's like a mold, a cement kind of, it's called track stone. We do that on occasion if there's a good print. We like, you know, if it's raining, we like to get out there right away and start doing those things so that it doesn't deteriorate over time. Tool marks, I kind of explained that a little bit. We'll measure them, photo them just to see if it's the same method that's been being used in multiple scenes. And then if we do recover items from somebody on their person, we can compare that to our photos and our evidence. Photographs, extremely important. Like I said, a lot of the detectives aren't out at those scenes, so this is what they have to reference when they get the case. They get the report and they get the photographs. So recording things as they were when they were found. We also ask that when people come into, typically this happens in burglaries, if it's an overnight thing and you come in and now there's a burglary, We really like to encourage people not to move things or touch things or look for suspects. Just get on the phone and call 911. That's what we're here for. We'll clear the building, we'll look around, because we don't want stuff moved or contaminated. It's easier for us that way to process the scene. Video, I talked about that already. This is what would be bad video, but we get a lot that looks like this. And then, you know, it's very hard for us to identify people in bad video. But if you know your system, know how it works, and have someone available who can run it, it's extremely helpful for the investigation. And then recovery of items. This is, that photo on the right is our fuming chamber. And we got that through a grant from the Bloomington Crime Prevention Association. After their big book sale, we were awarded a grant, and we purchased this fuming chamber. When Carrie shows you the fingerprint station, the fingerprints are just as you took them. We'll dust them and then try to lift them. But often, if we have other items that are brought back to the police department here to be processed, we will, that's a super glue fuming chamber in theory. The super glue goes into the chamber, and then humidity is created, which then adheres to the fingerprint. So it just raises it and makes it a lot more visible, a lot more rigid for us for when we lift it. It's a good tool. They've been using those forever. Prior to this fancy one that we had a fish tank and a hot plate, you know, and it got us by, but this was really a significant upgrade, and we've had good results with it. Our vehicle, we do have a crime scene vehicle. Ours isn't labeled crime scene vehicle. It is an SUV. This one came out of Burnsville. That's a photo of their truck. But it's nice for our investigators because they can keep all their equipment. They have better cameras than what the typical patrol squad has. We have some nice digital, larger cameras, and then the regular street cars have a smaller one. So we have our own crime scene vehicle. We used to have a Dodge Magnum, which people thought was really cool, but I don't think the people who drove it thought it was as cool as the people who were looking at it. And then special equipment. What we have in addition to what a typical patrol car would have is the nicer cameras, DNA collection. Not everybody collects DNA, only the crime techs do, and the only reason for that is because they need to be able to go to court and say, I've been trained in the collection of DNA. But they have a 40-hour class, they get a certification. Not every officer is able to do that. Alternate light source, Todd is going to show you that. Laser, that's for measuring things. We don't use that as much as what crime lab would do. And then just other stuff, bags, and boxes. Everything we do goes into a bag and needs to be labeled, and all that's for the integrity of the case and the evidence when we submit it to crime lab or BCA, and then it goes to court. So they carry a lot of stuff. That's all I have for kind of our brief synopsis. Any questions? Does anybody have any cases they have a question about? Any examples of something that they may have experienced? Go ahead.
Take to get a warrant to collect somebody's DNA?
Warrants are actually pretty quick. I had a detective yesterday who had been looking for a male because she had a case where it was, I don't remember if it was a theft from vehicle or we had a lot of copper wire thieves going around, but she had a case where a hammer was collected at a scene, swabbed it for DNA. Several months later, it came back to a male. It said it's John Smith. But the attorney said, I need to have a known sample. They do this for their prosecution. They want a known sample from John Smith himself to say, okay, that's his DNA. He, fortunately for us, was in jail. So she drafted a warrant that day, yesterday morning, drafted the warrant to collect his DNA. You say, this is why I want it. The county attorney needs it for prosecution. Take it downtown Minneapolis prior to noon. And there's a judge there who all day that's their job. They sign warrants, they sign complaints, they sign domestic protection orders. So you go to that judge, they sign it, and then she just drove across the street, or she walked across the street to the jail and served it to him. So DNA warrants are typically pretty quick. Anytime you have a search warrant, if it's in the daytime, you can usually draft and get it signed quickly. At nighttime, it's a different story. You have to find the on-call judge and drive to their house and wake them up and have it signed. So that's a little different. But the DNA warrants are pretty, it's not a lot of hassle. Any other questions? No? Oh, go ahead.
Why does it take so long to get their samples back?
Well, the reason is because there's two primary places that we send them. Hennepin County Crime Lab or the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension in St. Paul over off Maryland. And I don't know what their staff is right now, but they have just a couple people who run the DNA. So they're running all of our DNA, Bloomington. They're running all the DNA. The Hennepin County runs all the DNA for every city in Hennepin County. They have a large, large number of cases. And with DNA becoming more common, we take it almost on every scene now. So we submit lots and lots of stuff to them. It takes that long because it takes that long for it to go through the system. It takes that long for them to even get to the cases. They prioritize it by severity of the case. So a violent crime is going to get processed long before a commercial burglary is going to get processed, because the victim is a person in the violent crime, so they process those prior to the burglaries. They also process evidence where there's a known suspect before they do where there's an unknown suspect, because they can compare the two. They have something to compare it to rather than just a wild shot in the dark as to who this might belong to. The other part of that is if it does come back, we'll get results a lot of times that say, okay, your hit came back to a person, but we don't know who that person is. We have a good profile, but we don't know who it is. So then the next step would be they would enter it into the database of known offenders. So it takes a while, and it can be frustrating. The residential burglary detective I have now just started doing that job in August. The prior one had retired. And for the first couple months, it's like, why does this take so long? How come? And then I keep giving him one, they didn't get a hit, they didn't get a hit. And he's just extremely frustrated. You know, he thought it was like CSI Miami. Why is this taking so long? He's learning in his role now that the reasons why, and he's the one that got, as the Chief Potts had said, a residential burglary. They took a lot of stuff from this house. The burglar took a TV off the mount from the ceiling, and one of our crime techs lifted a print off of the plastic cover that housed that mount, and we got a hit to a known offender 7 months later. And that was also a guy who had just gotten released from prison prior to that burglary. So it does take a while, but we end up with results and a lot of times in the end. Go ahead.
Focuses on business, and you just mentioned the residential burglary, but our home was burglarized 8-9 years ago, and made a quick call, and I'm glad we did. Got good advice on the phone about getting out of the house, for example.
Yeah.
Probably the application for a business is if you open up a business and you discover it, it's not time to do your own investigation.
Right. Yep, that is. A lot of times our business burglaries, you're called in for an alarm. You know, the alarm company will call the business owner and they respond, and then they find the front door broken. We always advise people, call 911 first. Don't go in there. You don't know if the person's still inside. You don't know if they've left anything behind, you know, that could injure you. You don't know the condition of the building inside either. And our officers, that's what they do. They'll send 2, 3, 4 cars to go in and clear that business, and once they know it's safe, then they'll bring the business owner or the manager, or whoever that person is who's on scene, they'll bring them inside to kind of go through and see what's different, what's not in the right place, was there a, you know, and then they'll start asking those questions. But there's no reason for the owner to, or the manager, whoever is on scene, to go in and try to investigate that on their own. I know people get excited and they want to see what happened and look at stuff, but it really is beneficial to everybody to step back, get the cops there, and then go through the business together. Go ahead.
I'm a real estate appraiser. I'm not entirely sure what I'm just going to announce now, but I think the legislature just passed some law that real estate appraisers have to get fingerprinted to get their license renewed.
Oh, I don't, yeah.
My question is, you know, I haven't committed any crimes, but once my fingerprints are put into some system, I mean, who's next? And every time a crime is committed, you have a fingerprint. Are you going to look at somebody like me?
No, I don't know that particular legislation, but I will tell you that, like, when we do, I also work with the licensing department here to issue license for liquor sales, liquor stores, restaurants. We also do background checks on massage parlors. People applying for those licenses have to submit fingerprints to us. And what we use those for is, we don't store those or keep those. We take the ones you submit to us and we compare them to the ones in the national database that are there from criminals, people who've been mandated to have their prints on file because they've been convicted of a crime. So we'll take your prints, see, does this match any criminal? No, and then your prints go away. They don't get stored, so that may be what they're doing with those fingerprints that they're collecting. I don't know that they would keep them in a file. They may just be comparing them to see, well, was this person a known burglar, or was this person, you know, some type of criminal? But I'd have to read the legislation to know for sure. But that's what we do with our liquor and massage license. Anyone else? Yeah, I think we're gonna split you up probably in 2 groups, and then we only have about a half hour, so 15 minutes, we'll kind of switch. We'll take the front half of the room, these first 4 rows. Does that sound good, Heidi? Okay, the first 4 rows can go with Todd. He'll lead you, he's gonna bring you right out this door and kind of show. The room is small, so he'll take you in smaller groups, whatever, I don't know what's gonna fit in there. And everyone else, you can kind of come back with Carrie and she'll give a demo and you can ask her questions.
So what we have back here is our fingerprinting supplies, what we use. We use different powders. We go from black, gray, white, and how you determine what powder you're going to use is the type of object that you're actually dusting to lift a print. So, you know, something such as this clear bottle, we're going to want to use a dark powder because you want to be able to see, you know, what's actually on the item. Something like this, if we were going to process, as we've talked about DNA, we'd probably swab, you know, around the opening, you know, to get any possible DNA off of it. Other than that, then secondly, then we'd dust it, okay? If we have a large amount of quantities that we're going to be dusting, more than likely, I'd probably put them all in our super glue chamber that Detective Clausen, or Sergeant Clausen was talking about. But for today's purposes, we'll show you some dusting. Now, with these kinds of items, we're looking for a smooth surface when we're using the dust, and the fingerprint powder, I should say. Surface to put this on to, you know, make the print visible, okay? If it's a rough surface, obviously there's different sources that we'll use. We've got microsil, which is kind of like silly putty, and various other things for different types of surfaces. But for today, we're just going to use the dusting powder. So for something like this, we're just going to be dusting, okay? And we're just kind of going in motions like this, okay? We're not going in streaks. We're not, you know, like we're painting a wall. We're just brushing the surface, kind of going in a circular motion to see if we can pick anything up, okay? And sometimes you might not find anything, but then sometimes, you know, you will. So we'll kind of see what we got on this one. And this one, I don't think there's going to be anything of substance on this one yet.
Sorry?
But as you can see, I mean, it's picking up something, and it could be just, you know, like a brush transfer. Like Sergeant Clausen was saying, we get smudges or smears. Sometimes, you know, if we see that, I mean, this now, I wouldn't be able to, you know, get DNA off it because I've already contaminated it with the dust. So like I mentioned, you do the DNA first, but this is more of like a smudged area that it's picking up on. Other articles, we could try this other pop can here, and we'll see if we can get something off of this one. Got a little bit of a partial. And this stuff is really messy. I mean, I'll go home and it gets in your nose, it gets on your clothes, you'll be wiping your face, and you'll see it later on, and it's like, you have a mustache today, Carrie, what's going on? And I'm like, well, I was dusting earlier. So if we come to your business, I mean, it's going to be simple, you know, you clean it up easy, you know, like 409 or something like that, but dry cloth it first and then use a, you know, like Windex or something to clean it up after that, because otherwise it'll just smear and spread even more. So on this can here, we've got a couple small impressions or small prints that are actually popping up. And so what we do from there is, let's see here. And when we do this, I mean, we're photographing first, and then actually when we get the print to develop, we'll photograph that again. We'll use a scale to it, you know, so we get a size. We'll take a photo image with that. And then what we'll do next is we're going to lift the print, all right? And so basically what it is, you know, if you've used packing tape, that's what this is, okay? So we're going to pull a piece of this off, and we're going to put it on the can to lift that print. This one's kind of like a partial. It might be worthy of something. Then again, you know, you just never know, but it's always worth taking every print that you get. So we're putting it on the print that we've developed, making it nice and smooth, get those air bubbles out of there. And then what happens is then we'll lift it. And then we're going to put it on a clear card like this. And once again, we want to make sure there's no bubbles and stuff under there. We do have like a little roller, I can look for that too. But as you can see then, I mean, there's a good, you know, couple different prints. Looks like fingertips, smaller fingers, 3 of them right in a row here that are on there. Okay, so that's kind of what we do. What I would do with this then, you know, I'd put the case number on it, the date, my badge number, and then it'd be entered that way as evidence, you know, where I got it, that kind of a thing, and it's part of the case, and you know, every article is going to be numbered, I mean, is what we're going to be doing. So if we've got some people that want to try this, like I said, you're more than welcome to try it to see what it's all about. It's kind of cool, like I said, it's kind of messy too, so we've got some rubber gloves here if you want to try and do this. Another example is when we go to scenes and when we're dealing with victims, we also need elimination prints. And as it kind of mentioned, we've got 2 ways of doing that. One, I need to verify that, you know, if I find a fair print, I mean, how do I know these prints that we just pulled off this can aren't the victims? So I'm going to need your fingerprints out at the scene too. We can do that 2 ways. One, we use these little fingerprint cards and a little packet of black ink. And it's in this little container here. And I'm just going to take your finger, plop it in there, and just kind of roll it quick, and we're going to put it on this card. Otherwise, if I don't have that available, and that's sometimes obviously kind of messy, I'll take a card like this, just a clear plastic one. And before you guys came to class, I had my partner Todd just put his fingers on it. What I'll ask you to do is, you know, get some oils on your skin first, maybe just touch your face, and then have you touch the card, and I'll get a I'll do like 4 fingers and then a thumb from our victims, but you can see the prints, you know, they do develop. I don't know if you can see that, if it's easier up here, but they do develop on there. So if I ask for elimination prints, that's the reason, and as Sergeant Clausen stated, it's just to compare with stuff that we have from the scene so we can rule you out. You're not a suspect that we're looking for, and they're tossed after that. They don't put them in a database. They don't keep them in the system. You know, there's no super secret file that they're going to keep them somewhere after we get them, but it's just part of what we do to rule you out as a potential suspect.
Do you only get 1 shot at the, like, say you smudge it or something, you can't get that fingerprint off again, is that correct? Or
pretty much, yeah.
So when like we do if you would have screwed up the Dr. Pepper can and that was like your only source, then it
but once again, I would have swabbed for DNA first, and then I would have processed it for prints. More than likely, if we're out of the scene, we're going to use powder. You know, if it's like a countertop surface, something smooth, if I can take it back to the police department, if it's small enough, if it's going to fit in our super glue chamber, that's where I'm going to take it. Okay, and that when it does that, when it fumes on it and adheres to it, that print isn't coming off of there once it's super glued on there. It's pretty awesome, and you could put that back into evidence, look at it 20 years from now, you're still going to have that fingerprint on there because it's basically super glued and printed on there now. So, you know, we like to do that a lot, especially, you know, if we get, you know, handguns, that kind of stuff. I mean, anything can fit in there. Like I said, if I could put this whole bag, I'd put every article in there and put it in the little easy bake oven for, you know, the 20-30 minutes and bring it out. And at that point, then, you know, you would dust it to develop that print even more. Otherwise, you could just submit it that way in that fashion to the BCA or Hennepin County Crime Lab, and they'll process it from there. So, anybody want to try this? Anyone? Anyone? All right, we'll do some other. Obviously, on this surface, you got a darker background, so I would probably use the white powder.
Is there a point where a partial doesn't have value because it's just not enough to compare?
It's good to have because you might have another partial elsewhere, and your fingerprint, they can pick up so many identifying points. And when they run it, when the crime lab or BCA runs that print, there's so many identifying factors that they can take a partial print, and sometimes they can actually identify who it belongs to based on particular identifying points on that print. So it's always good to take them and submit even the partials, because sometimes those will actually pan out to work in your advantage. And you know, we'll get palm prints or partial palms, so you know, those are just as valuable too. I mean, anything we get, we're gonna take. So footprints, you know, I mean, you know, somebody's barefoot, we're gonna get that that impression as well. So, but like I said, different powders. There's also another cool powder. It's called magnetic powder. It wouldn't be used for these kinds of services, but more of like paper products, like someone was handling your mail or tampering with your mail, or touched some papers, you know, if they were digging through files, you know, at your business, that kind of a thing. It's really cool. It's magnetic, and you know, the powder adheres to the tool itself, and it cleans up really easy. It's like a magnet, so it's really cool. I like that a lot as well. So anyways, anybody want to try this at all? Everybody's like, I don't want to get messy, but like I said, it's a lot of pictures. It's a lot of work when we go to a scene, because you know, we got to photograph the whole scene. We kind of want to tell a story with our photos, and then we're going in, we're finding our evidence. We're taking, you know, photos leading up to that, photos with and without scale. You know, I mentioned that, you know, it's just a measuring device to kind of get a size, you know, footwear tread or a fingerprint impression, that kind of a thing. You know, and then we're actually collecting it. You know, stuff like this, you know, it's going to be put in a paper bag. Anything that we get, we don't want to damage our potential evidence. You know, if it's DNA evidence, we want everything kind of in paper. We're not going to put it in plastic, you know. And when we go through the scenes with you, we're going to probably ask you to walk with us and say, hey, what's missing, you know, what was added, you know, as Sergeant Closet mentioned, you know, this bottle of apple juice, this wasn't ours, this wasn't here before. So we're going to, you know, kind of be asking you those kinds of things, and it might be a little bit tough for you because it's kind of traumatic if you're the victim of a crime at times, but, you know, we're going to work with you the best we can at the situation. So just kind of some ideas to go through at the scene.
I'll give you my finger.
What?
I'll give you my finger.
Yeah.
Fingerprints?
All right, you want to come over? You want to dust? We got some gloves here.
Oh, I thought you were going to take a fingerprint.
No, I can do that too if you want, but otherwise you can try and dust something. Like I said, you can try and do some dusting if you liked. It's a lot of fun. So, any other questions I can answer for anyone?
Yeah, how do you take the evidence from the fingerprint and put it into the database?
That is done through the BCA. So what they'll do is they'll look at this image, they'll get some other photographs of it, but they'll take like a photo image of it, and then they're gonna put that in. They're gonna find all the like identifying points that, you know, what they pick out of it, and then it's put into their system to compare. So I'm not, you know, we don't do that on our end, but that's what the BCA and Hennepin County Crime Lab will do. So they'll just compare, you know, what they have. If it's a palm, they're gonna compare it to palms that they have on file. You know, if it's a, you know, index finger, they'll compare it to that. And, you know, obviously we're all of our own fingerprint, and there's certain different identifying features that we all have, so it kind of just matches into the computer system. They put it in, and it does all of that search process in the system.
So do you send them everything that you collect?
Not everything. We'll collect more and take more than what we're actually going to send in. And so, you know, something like, hey, if this pop cam, we got the DNA off of it, and a fingerprint, yeah, we're gonna for sure send that. You know, from a scene, you know, whatever we collect, we'll submit what we think is really gonna be the golden ticket for us, you know, for the most part. But we collect everything just because sometimes those things we think are the golden ticket aren't gonna be as helpful as we thought they were.
And could you send it in later then?
Yep.
Do you save all that?
Yep, all of our evidence that we collect, it is kept down in our evidence locker, evidence rooms. It's all like inventoried. Each case has got their box and however many articles that are in there. That's where they're kept. And even after a case is closed and cleared, we retain those items for a certain period of, I don't know what the actual time frame is, how many years after that, but we have to keep it on file and keep it in our system. So, because obviously we get cases that we don't solve, and all that evidence is still in our inventory system and our evidence. So
Probably matched up with like a statute of limitation thing.
Yeah, that, and then, you know, like I said, if a case is cleared, we still retain that evidence. You know, we have a process that we have to retain it for so long, and I don't know the exact
Carrie,
time
we're going to
period.
switch if that's okay with you.
All right, sounds good.
Hi everybody, I'm Todd Severson with the Bloomington Police Department. I've been here for about 13 years coming in June, and I've been a police officer altogether for about 16 years. I worked for 3 years up in Melrose, Minnesota, a small little town. I've been doing the crime scene unit for the past 7 years or so. One of the things we entail here with the crime scene unit is using the ultraviolet lights, alternative light sources. If we get called to somewhere like a CSC, a rape or a homicide, something like that, we'll go to the crime scene. We'll use lights to actually try to find the fluids. What these ultraviolet lights do is they illuminate, fluoresce the different stains in here. This is very easy to see. Yeah, there's a stain in there, but on different types of material, you might not even see it at all, where we need to have special lights to light it up and see them. We use filters that'll block off certain types of lights. That's going to luminesce the proteins in these different things. Right now what we're using is blue cheese and yogurt that'll light up on here. And when we turn lights out, you'll be able to see a better example of what it is. You'll be able to grab either the glasses or the orange or yellow plate and look through the lights just like this, and just look around in it. From that point, if we see something that fluoresces, depending on what it is, we may either cut it out if it's carpeting. If somebody was raped on the floor or something like that, we may cut the piece of carpeting out and send it off rather than take the whole area of carpeting. Or if it's a bedspread, something like this, we may just take this and package it and send it out to the county to have them test that spot. Not always going to be, it's not always going to be semen, urine, anything like that, but it's a good possibility if they said, yeah, I was raped over here on this bed or something like that, that there's either semen or bodily fluids on there that are on there. And they'll test those and come back to us and tell us. Again, like my sergeant said, it can take up to 3, 4, 5 months, 6 months before we get any results back on that. Generally, with a rape victim, it's going to come back a lot quicker because they're going to process that a lot quicker. Another big thing we have here, I think I use this one, is we do a lot of DNA swabs. That's probably our #1 thing we do right here as far as getting any evidence back from. Fingerprints are great, but they smudge a lot. If somebody's putting something on a table, you might get a smudgy fingerprint. You'll have the outline of the fingerprint, but you won't have any details in the fingerprint itself. So what we'll do is we'll take, in certain circumstances, take this cotton tip that are sterile. If it's a liquid that's still there, that's still wet, we don't need to do anything as far as wetting it down. We'll just put it across this area. If it's something that's been dry for quite a while, we'll take the sterilized water here, wet these Q-tips down, and then rub it inside this area that we think might be blood, semen, bodily fluids, any type of thing that it might have DNA on it. We have to package it, and then we seal it tight in the packaging. Probably our most time-consuming thing is making sure everything's sealed and labeled correctly, because if we don't, we lose chain of custody on it, and we'll be pretty much ridiculed in court. But it takes quite a long time to get these things even to come back. It's been 4, 5, 6 months, a year later, 2 years later before we get hits on them sometimes. We'll do the same thing with DNA. If we get somebody's DNA on something that comes back from one of these swabs that we've already done a year ago, we'll apply for a search warrant. We'll go in there and take the cotton swab inside their mouth and package it up the same way and send it into the county to have them compare that sample. Reason why we do 2 Q-tips. One is used for the current tests that they're doing, and the other one's used in case they have to use it again in court. If the attorney says, no, I don't believe that, they'll have a second Q-tip with the same DNA on it that they can go back, that the attorney that's defending the suspect can go back and test himself if he wants in an independent lab. If you want, I'll let you grab, we don't have enough to go around, but grab a flashlight here, and we'll turn off the lights here in a few seconds. You can look around this thing and see what you see as far as that goes. If you just want to turn those on, what you want to do is with the glasses or anything, just put the flashlight in front of the filter here and look around on here, and you can kind of see where it illuminates. It's kind of cool. There's a big difference between the 3 lights we have here is what you're going to see. That light you might not be able to see as good as what that light does.
All 3 of the flashlights are different?
They're all different spectrums of color, yes. And we have a whole box back there that about 7 or 8 different colors, but they don't work on anything like this. Yeah, if you want to shut the door a little bit more. But it's something that gives us an indication that there may be semen on there, there may be urine on there, there may be blood on there. In cases, we don't deal with homicides here, the county does that, but in the cases when they deal with them, if the person has used bleach or anything else to clean up that area, if it's tub, if it's tile, if it's carpeting, if it's wood floors, even if they've used bleach, we can go back there with a spray called luminol, spray that area down, and we can find, through these type of lights, we can find where the blood was. The splatters, the stains, everything. You can't completely 100% clean up a stain like blood or something like that. It's going to always go into cracks of grout or anything.
What if you're in an area that you can't shut the lights off and you don't know, you know, like you're outside? I suppose you could wait till it's night, but it's still not good.
If it was something that was bright in the area we couldn't get anything, we'd still take the things. It just makes us take more, takes more items. I've taken the whole couch cushion. I've taken all the bed sheets. I've taken pillows. I've taken, you name it, out of an area that's filled the whole back end of my squad car up and brought it in. There might not be anything on a lot of it, but I don't know until the crime lab actually gets through there and looks at it. And a lot of these things too, coffee's not going to fluoresce like that. It's just going to be stains that have some type of proteins in them that are going to light up like that. It may be that's just, when I bring it back to crime lab, they say no, it's not a bodily fluid. It might be a stain of some other source, like blue cheese or yogurt there. And what we do from this point, like I said, a lot of it depends on labeling and marking and packaging. We have special filters that also go over our cameras as well. Those red or orange and yellow filters that we'll use them to take the pictures with. With luminol, as far as blood goes, you have to take it pretty quick within probably about 5 minutes, or else that luminol will disappear on there and you can't reuse it again. It just doesn't fluoresce with the blood proteins. And it also helps, I guess I can turn back on the lights. And I think I've went over it, but we would even, so far as if it was in a room, the gal said she was raped there, we found something, possibly blood, we could take her knife in there and cut that area out instead of taking the whole carpeting out. Just to send in that smaller piece versus a huge piece of carpet. Anybody have any questions?
Do you need to apply the luminol within a certain amount of time?
Luminol just doesn't need to be applied within a certain amount of time. It's just when you apply it, it only lasts. It only fluoresces that blood for a certain period of time. I believe it's under 5 minutes. So you have to be ready with your cameras, your filters, and all that, and take pictures. Otherwise, it's gone, and you won't get it back there. For some reason, something in that luminol reacts with the proteins and negates it out. Excuse me. So it only takes a few minutes, and then it's gone.
And any type of protein?
Just blood. That's the only thing we use luminol right now on for is to show up blood, that there's any type of blood stains. I mean, if I were to put a bloody hand right here and take bleach or some type of material and clean it out, you're still going to be able to see that with luminol, no matter how hard you clean it, whether it's in tile grout, wood floors, anything like that. They've solved murders with coming back with new technology such as luminol, spraying the floor down and find out, geez, that does have blood in it.
Because all surfaces are porous to a certain degree.
Yep, to a certain degree, yes. The biggest thing I'd suggest for business owners, homeowners, anything like that, if you find your door broken into, you found a business broken into, don't enter it. Stay outside. Don't go say, oh, let's see if the cash register, any money left in the cash register, anything like that. Because once you touch that, you're contaminating the area. It may come back that I'll do a DNA swab and it'll come back to yours as well as somebody else's also. So you kind of want to just stay out of the area, keep it contaminated free. Be able to say that for court, that if I go in there and I can testify saying, yeah, the homeowner or the business owner, they said they didn't go in there, they didn't touch any of that area. Anybody else? Well, thank you for coming. Appreciate it.